Today we're going to take a look at the digestive system. We're going to look at structures, functions, some fun facts, talk about how homeostasis works. This picture shows all of the structures. We're only going to hone in on 5 because we have to move through this pretty quickly. So let's get going. Let's get started with the fun facts about the digestive system. Did you know that an average adult stomach can hold up to 2 liters of liquid or food? Now, that's the same 2-liter soda bottle that we used on the Eco bottles. Remember those? Yeah, pretty substantial. Also, the total length of all of the organs of the digestive system can be 9 meters. All right, if you're in Mr. Christopher's room, 9 meters is almost as wide as the room is long. That room is 10 meters long. Hydrochloric acid, which is produced by the stomach, can dissolve metal, but does not have an effect on plastic. Chemistry. Also, did you know that the average human being, which includes you, has over 400 different species of bacteria in their colon? Yep, that's you. You've got over 400 different species of bacteria in your colon. Now let's talk about what the digestive system does, what the functions are. First of all, it is responsible for digestion. It breaks down food into molecules that your body can use. The second thing it does is absorption. It absorbs those broken down food molecules, which are in the form of chemical energy. It absorbs that into your blood. Now, once it's in the blood, the circulatory system is what's going to work with the digestive system to get energy to the cells of your body. Third thing is elimination. Got to get rid of what's left over, right? It eliminates waste from the body. So why do we digest food? Well, of course, we all need energy. Our cells need energy. And when the energy level in our cells is low, the body is going to respond by telling you that you're hungry, with hunger. So organisms like us eat to gain energy that's stored in the chemical bonds within the food. Now that's of course because we're not photosynthetic, right? We can't get energy from the sun, so we have to eat things to get that energy. Energy from food is measured in units called calories, and 1 calorie is the amount of energy needed to raise the temperature of 1 gram of water 1 degree Celsius. And if you'll remember when we talked about work, a joule is the measurement that we use, and that actually is equal to 4.2 joules. All right, here's a little quick quiz to remind you guys you have to remember things. Which one of these is not a function of the digestive system? Elimination of waste, absorption of nutrients, moving nutrients through the blood, or breaking down food? Now we actually have 2 types of digestion that we use. The first is mechanical digestion, which is where we break food into smaller pieces through grinding and tearing and chewing things up. And this is known as a physical change. The second kind of digestion that we utilize is called chemical digestion. And this is where food gets broken up into smaller pieces through the use of chemicals. We also know this as chemical change. Now, this is another way to look at how a more complex molecule gets broken down into simpler molecules. The starch molecule shown here is comprised of all these molecules bound together by these chains. Through the process of digestion, it gets broken down into the individual, smaller, simpler sugar molecules. Now, let's talk about how food gets broken down for energy. The function of chemical digestion is to break food down into usable nutrients and energy that the body can use. So we have enzymes, which are chemical acids and bases that are used to break the bonds, which are like chains, holding the individual molecules together in a chain. So for example, a carbohydrate molecule, which is a complex sugar, will get digested and broken down into its smaller component sugar molecules. So that's how we take energy from its complex form to its simpler, usable form. So we've looked at the functions of the digestive system. Now let's talk about what structures accomplish those functions. So first of all, we're going to look at the mouth. Then we're going to look at the details of the esophagus, of the stomach, of the small intestine, and finally of the large intestine. Now there are a lot of other structures, as I pointed out at the beginning of this presentation, but just because of the brevity of our course, our unit, the shortness of the time we have available, we're just going to look at these 5. The first structure food will come in contact with is the mouth. This is where digestion begins. The teeth, the tongue, the salivary glands, each of these play a role in the digestive process. So we see both types of digestion in the mouth. Mechanical digestion is used by the teeth and the tongue as well to break up food. And chemical digestion happens with the salivary glands. So salivary glands release enzymes, which are chemicals, which help break down and soften the food, not by physical work, but by chemically breaking them down. This is your saliva. The spit that is in your mouth is produced by these salivary glands, and you have a number of them. If you look at that picture, they're situated at the rear of your mouth and on both sides of your lower jaw. Now, take a quick minute or so, talk with your neighbor about these 2 questions. How do your teeth help in the process of digestion? And how can the shape of teeth help predict what type of food is consumed by an animal? In other words, what type of teeth are going to determine an herbivore, an omnivore, or a carnivore? So we've had a discussion of the mouth. Now let's move to the next step in the digestive system, which is the esophagus. This is the muscular tube that is lined with mucus, slippery stuff, that connects the mouth to the stomach. We also call the esophagus the food pipe. It contains the epiglottis, which is a flap of tissue that covers the trachea, the windpipe, when you swallow, which allows food to only go down the esophagus and not down the trachea. So there's this movement that's called peristalsis, which is a muscular movement that helps move food down the esophagus. It's kind of like how a snake swallows its prey, because it's kind of round like our esophagus, and it squeezes one section at a time, and as each section squeezes, the next section downstream of it squeezes, and that pushes food things, which we call the bolus. The thing that you've swallowed is actually called the bolus, and that is called peristalsis. And onward to the stomach. The stomach is a J-shaped muscular pouch. It expands to hold all the food that you swallow. Your stomach will produce enzymes and hydrochloric acid, which are the gastric juices, which is what you taste if you accidentally burp something up and it tastes so nasty. Yeah, that's because you've got hydrochloric acid in there. It also has a coating of mucus that protects the lining from the stomach acids that are produced. So it's kind of like a self-protection measure to protect the linings of the stomach. Now to continue on with the stomach, both types of digestion occur in the stomach. We have mechanical digestion, which is accomplished by 3 different layers of muscles, which will churn and squeeze and mix the food with the digestive juices. So the stomach actually physically works the food with these muscles. It also utilizes chemical digestion, where food will actually act as a stimulus to make the cells in the stomach lining release those digestive juices that we talked about, the enzymes, the hydrochloric acid, and those will chemically react with the foods. That chemical reaction is what we call digestion, where it breaks apart the food into its smaller molecules. A little more about the stomach. Food will stay in the stomach until all the solids have been broken down into this liquid that we call chyme. It's spelled C-H-Y-M-E, but it's pronounced chyme, like time, but with a K sound at the beginning. Now, once all these solids have become liquid, or chyme, they will then proceed into the next part of the digestive system, which is called the small intestine. Now, if something is not digestible, like, if you swallow something that can't get digested by your body, it will just pass from the stomach into the small intestine, in its solid state, and it will just pass through, not digested. The next stop in your digestive system is the small intestine. Small intestine is about 6 meters long, and this is where most chemical digestion and absorption of nutrients is going to occur. This is the location where the circulatory system is going to interact with the digestive system to pull the nutrients out and into the bloodstream. So the small intestine is where the circulatory system interacts with the digestive system. This is where nutrients get absorbed into the blood. And the actual site within the small intestine that this absorption occurs is in these cells that are called villi. And these villi line the entire interior walls of the small intestine. If you'll look at the cutaway picture here, you'll see that the villi are set up in rows along the entire interior there. So how do they work? Well, there are blood vessels that run through the villi, and as that liquid nutrient mixture, these nutrient molecules, pass from the cells on the villi surface, they will actually pass through, because they're small enough now, they've been digested, they'll pass through into the blood vessels of the circulatory system that line these villi. And then, of course, the blood will carry those nutrients through the body. And that's how nutrients go from being in the solid and then liquid form and actually get into your blood and get carried to the cells. Now, the last stop that materials make in the digestive system is the large intestine. Well, not quite the last stop, but almost. The large intestine is about 1.5 meters long, and the large intestine is home to a lot of good bacteria that actually produce vitamins for us. This is where water is absorbed into the bloodstream, and undigested material will be expelled from the body. Now, the actual final steps involve the rectum, which is the very, very tiny end part of the large intestine, and then as that undigested material, let's call it poop, leaves the body, it is leaving out the anus. Okay, so a little discussion on terminology. Your anus is your body part, and the planet Uranus is a planet that's part of our solar system. So when we get to that unit, we will not be talking about Uranus because that's your body part. We will be talking about Uranus, though, at that time. Now, last but not least, let's talk about how the digestive system helps us maintain homeostasis. Homeostasis is keeping ourselves in balance, right? So, the first one is reverse peristalsis, or vomiting. Remember that peristalsis is the muscular action of swallowing. Well, if you reverse that, when we vomit, we are removing harmful materials from our body. And this is going to be triggered by an irritation to the digestive system. And this is usually because the thing you swallowed is not recognized by your body as having value. Maybe it's poisonous. Maybe you ate too much. And so your body says, we're not going to let that stay in here for the next 6 to 48 hours. We're going to move this thing on out right now, back out the way it came. The second thing that your body will do is cramp if your stomach is too full or too tired. And that cramping is going to help the stomach digest food faster. Okay. Also, the third and probably the most important thing is feeling hungry when your cells have low energy. That is a form of homeostasis. Keeps us fed.